The creator royalty discussion is back after the Captainz drop on Saturday. We're going to dive into that momentarily. Before we get going, please like today's stream, subscribe to our channel, head to FLOLiO.com for all of your NFT portfolio management needs. Nothing we say in this video is financial advice. We are not financial advisors. Please do all of your own research when it comes to any buying and selling decisions. Dan, Captainz had a successful airdrop on Saturday. 9gag did a great job with that. Everything went smoothly. They got the refunds back. All that was good. But then there was a little bit of FUD around the fact that 9% creator royalty was added onto, is part of the Captainz collection, which shouldn't be too surprising. Potatoes have been at 9%. I think people should have connected the dots. But as someone who's deep in that community, what were the criticisms of it and how did the team respond?
Yeah, like quite literally the only point of criticism was the fact that it was a 9% royalty fee on it, and this was also explained in the this was explained before the mint as well. So everyone kind of already knew it was 9%. So how the team replied is they mentioned that they thought the 9% is worth it, right? They said we value our product with a 9% royalty fee to us, but they said that they don't want to just reward the holders for selling. So the 9% is only going to be affected for traders, essentially. And even if there was 2%, they would still just use OTC over the counter, so not paying the fee whatsoever. So they want to reward holders for actually holding. So whatever that entails, that we'll see that in the future.
Okay. Yeah. What were your thoughts when you saw the 9% fee? I know that you're someone who's been a long-term believer. I know that you've sold some potatoes, but you've held more than you've sold. So did you feel like that was a fair number and that you're going to get enough value from it?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's interesting because there's some projects where because I think we've talked about the Azuki before, and they had like was it like a 6.9% royalty fee or something?
I'm not sure. I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, sure. And we've always been pretty critical. We say like that is like really high, but I think these royalty fees, you kind of have to put them into perspective, right? So when you have a team like Azuki's, no wait, not Azuki's, like Clone X. I mean, when you have a team like Clone X, you don't really feel like that amount of like that money gets back to the holders. You kind of just feel like that just goes into the team's pockets and it disappears. But with this team, with the 9gag team, like they've said that they're going to use these funds to help bring back value to the holders, and all royalties are still sitting in the same wallet and they haven't been moved yet, which is interesting because they have like an obscene amount of royalties sitting in that wallet, and it's kind of like cool to see, I suppose.
Yeah, CloneX is 5%, Azuki is 5%. What we've talked about a bunch is all the other artifact collections, so like all the the apparel stuff that with Nike, all of that is 10%. Which Monolith 2, Crypto Kicks, Crypto Dunks, all the Murakami, like the Air Force Ones, like all of these different things have 10% royalties. They made an obscene amount of money. They still charge you to buy these things like up front, even if you're a CloneX holder. So like the amount of money that Artifact, and I'm not surprised it went to 10% because Artifact wants their 5%, Nike's going to want their 5%. And so that expense just got tacked on to all the customers. And so that's one of the things that's, I've never liked about Artifact is that 10%. I think where I stand on royalties is I don't think NFT businesses should view royalties as a revenue stream. Like if an artist wants to charge 10, 20, 30%, a one-of-one artist or a limited edition artist wants to charge a high royalty percentage for their work, all for it. I think that's great. I think they deserve it. And like these PFP projects that have like 5K, 10K amounts, charging more than like 2.5 or 5% seems excessive to me. I think that, if you're trying to build a business, you shouldn't be looking at secondary royalties as a stream of, revenue. I think that there's other things that your business should be focusing on. And that's just kind of, where I've stood on this argument for, a long time now.
Yeah. And I mean, the fees from secondary market, they don't last forever, right? As a company, you need something more reliable. So you cannot always make a living off constant volume, right? there's going to be moments where there isn't much traded. We've seen Bored Ape Yacht Club sometimes. We saw some days where it was like 1 or 2 sales or something. So like that stream doesn't last forever, but like long term partnerships with larger brands, for example, that is much more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that royalties for PFP projects, part of it should go back into rewarding your longer term holders, like for sure. So when we see these projects charging like 7.5%, 10%, and I think some of these open editions too, like if it's a well-respected artist and they're doing an open edition drop for like 0.1 ETH or 0.25 ETH, and then they have 10% royalties on top of it.
Yeah,
that to me seems pretty cash grabby. I get that, you know, some of them want to have open editions because it's a way for people who don't have the money for one-of-ones, like myself, to own a piece of their work, which I appreciate, and it's great. And I don't mind paying, you know, the mint price of 0.1 or 0.25 or 0.5 even, but then to tack on 10% royalties is just like, seems like a bit excessive.
Yeah, but I think everything is put into perspective, right? Is basically what we're saying. So imagine if you're minting an art piece for like if you hold it, or let's say you just sell it or whatever. Like let's just say there's some art piece and there's a 10% royalty fee on it. As a holder, you already know that like that's not gonna come back to reward you in any way. Like art is usually just, you know, just for holding. Same kinda for PFPs. It's just kind of like, even if there's a fee as like a PFP collection, it's often not so much utility. But that's why with 9gag, I think it's interesting because they have never really been like a PFP collection. So what I feel like is, and that's what they've said as well, is that they're really looking to reward holders. So in that context, I mind the fee a little bit less, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. And the fact that they are moving it to a wallet that is designated for rewarding of holders in some capacity. I don't know if that's going to be like through metaverse events or IRL events or what that may be. You know, they're going to have like their meme token as well. I'm guessing some of the royalties will go into the treasury and, you know, be a part of that as part of the liquidity pool for that as well. So yeah, I think that if there's these higher royalty amounts and there's a clear understanding of what's being used for, and if the team doesn't want to provide that and they just want to have high royalties so they get a consistent paycheck, you know, you vote with your wallet, right? Like I personally am not a fan of those projects. I'm probably not going to support them, like with Artifact. So I think it's you kind of vote for whether or not you like it by your buying and selling decisions.
Yeah. So and I was wondering, so there's one thing people are saying as well in regards to the Captainz mint is they're saying, oh, this 9% royalty fee, it kind of causes people to not want to buy the project. What do you think about such commentary?
Well, let me pull something up real quick. Captainz came out 3 days ago. They've already done almost 7,000 ETH in volume. So I would say that 9% royalty hasn't really dissuaded many people, and that's just on OpenSea. Because they're able to be traded on like X2Y2 and Blur as well, right?
Blur, I'm not sure if they should be either, because Blur was disabled for some time because they didn't have the royalties.
Okay.
But I think it's either already turned on or it's going to be turned on in the future. But also X2Y2, yeah.
I mean, so let's just use the OpenSea numbers. You know, they've been, like I said, almost 7,000 ETH traded. That means over 1,000 transactions, with where the floor price has been for the most part between like 5.3 and 5.8. So that means over 1,000 transactions since Saturday. I don't think that is really dissuading people from participating in purchasing these, whether they want to purchase it to hold long term or if they're like trying to swing trade as people sell them. There's probably an opportunity. You know, we always see it. These hyped up mints, there's a ton of excitement leading up to it. It drops. The team understandably needs time to continue to build onto it, you know, to build the next phase of the project or the business. And so people, you know, get frustrated because their expectations are that they're going to get something else immediately, which doesn't make any sense. And so the price starts to come down. It'll, 5.3 right now for Captainz feels like a decent price based on how well potatoes have done, how, you know, the type of community and culture they're building. So I could easily see this being a thing where, you know, there isn't any news for a little bit. The attention goes somewhere else. Like tomorrow is the next day of, you know, Trial of Jimmy the Monkey for Bored Ape Yacht Club. Not to talk too much about that, but attention goes here. People aren't looking at potatoes, and it could be a great opportunity to get potatoes, even with that 9% royalty. Because if you buy it at, you know, let's say 5 ETH, you got to sell it. You know, you want to make a profit. You got to build in that 9%. So what, you're getting 88.5% of whatever you sell it for. I mean, I could easily see them running up to 7, in which case, you know, you buy one for 5, you sell it at 7, you're still getting like 6.2 ETH. So you're getting a nice little profit there. So I think you just have to be, with these higher royalty percentages, you have to like have it's tougher, because if you want to make a decent profit, you have to get a little bit better about nailing when it's going to be near the bottom, which is very tough to do. But if you understand how these market cycles work, how the attention economy of the NFT space works, you can wait until attention is elsewhere, pick up a captain, you know, be patient, not expect to flip it the next day, but wait, you know, a week or 3 weeks, or God forbid you wait a month, and then you sell it once the next announcement is made, once there's more excitement about it, once they know more about the reveal and staking and, you know, the exploring or whatever they're calling it, like with when you have your crew, you know, once they know more about that, we should see, you know, a run back up in Captainz, I would think. So not financial advice, but it just goes back to the, you know, you just have to be a little bit smarter and a little bit more patient to try to make sure that you get the best ROI with this higher royalty percentage.
Yeah, and even if you don't sell it, there's a way to make money, right? Like, so I bought 3 potatoes before the Captainz mint, and that gave me 1 guaranteed captain. And, you know, so potatoes went down to like 1.5 back, and then back to 2. And end result is the price of my potatoes haven't really changed, and I got a free captain, right? So that's just like an extra 5 or 6 ETH. You know, they said it's a 3-course meal, so I assume that there's also going to be like a 3rd collection sometime in the future. And, you know, like, you're being rewarded for holding long term. So not everything is about selling and then paying this royalty fee or not paying the royalty fee, right? So there's different ways of earning money in a collection that doesn't just like revolve back to just selling the asset.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that's going to be tough for a lot of these projects to do, is reward new people who come in, because you can't just keep dropping NFTs forever, right?
Yeah.
Like, there has to be at some point, this is the size of the collection, this is how it's going to be. Yeah. And then how do those businesses reward new people without diluting it even further, right? Because if there is a 3rd collection, that's probably going to get fudded a bit, because the fact that it's just adding more NFTs, whether or not that FUD's deserved or not, is not the topic here. But it's like, how do the teams continue to reward, like, make it desirable for new people to get in without just continuing to add more and more NFTs? That, I think, is like the golden where question, a lot of people are going to struggle. Yeah.
Like, how do
and we've seen it. Okay, so, like, like, I saw earlier, like Gutter Cat Gang is under 2 ETH, which is wild. That's one business who struggled adding value without either adding more NFTs or like selling merch to their holders. So just something to keep in mind there.
Yeah, and if you're gonna if you end up adding collections like endlessly, that's gonna like heavily devalue everything. Because the interesting part, to use Memeland as an example again, is that they started with their companion project, and then only after they dropped the Captainz, which is actually their main project. So like, what's next? Our main project? Like, that's not how it works, right? You cannot have a main project or like a companion project, because that's just gonna be really weird. It's gonna be another 10K, and then the floor is gonna be like it's gonna be very, very confusing. So let's say you do that again, then you've completely have this insane oversupply, and it's completely watered down the entire collection.
Yeah, I'm wondering, and I know nothing about it really, but if it would be something like the villain of the storyline, right? Like, the captains are supposed to be out with the potatoes, like adventuring and exploring. What if the next one would be like the villains of the story, to kind of like,
what is he?
Yeah, there you go. There we may have just cracked the code, Dan.
Yeah.
You know, what if that's the case, and, you know, kind of bringing the story to a head right there. I think that could be kind of cool, as long as there's like a use for it besides just holding more NFTs.
Yeah.
Like that's why with this trial of Jimmy the Monkey thing, I don't want to get, once again, not too much in the Yuga stuff. I don't care if it's an NFT that's valuable at this point. Like I've been very fortunate with Bored Ape Yacht Club financially. It's been amazing, and I'll never get this lucky again probably. But now I'm at the point where I just want something different and fun that shows that, you know, teams are building new things beyond just the same old, same old. And so I think like this upcoming like interactive mint they're doing could be really cool. And, you know, on the keeping on the royalties discussion, they did just recently turn on the 2.5% for Bored Ape Kennel Club. So, you know, for those who don't know, Bored Ape Yacht Club dropped in April of 2021. The kennel dogs dropped shortly thereafter, I believe in like June. And at first there was a 2.5% royalty. All that money went to was donated to no-kill animal shelters, which is really cool. After that initial phase, they just turned the creator royalties off altogether, so they were set to 0. And it was just recently they turned them back on so that they could continue to have revenue that they could then use to, you know, put value back into holding the dog. So I'm curious how they do that as well, because they've shown that, like, you know, for those, it wasn't really about the money. It was just kind of a fun thing they wanted to do. And now they're adding value to it, which I think does set a good precedent for the rest of the community. It's like, hey, if you have these, you know, these royalties set and you're trying to be a legit business, how are you using that royalty money to deliver value?
Yeah, that's also really interesting. And another thing I'm wondering about is we've seen a lot of projects use tokens, right? For example, ApeCoin. I wonder what the future is going to be for tokens on OpenSea, because they're also part of a collection, maybe. So I could see a world where OpenSea is trying to get more of those fees and allows some sort of like decentralized exchange living on OpenSea or something for a specific project, so they can get that 2.5% of like token sales or something.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work. 'Cause, I mean, you use like decentralized exchanges like Uniswap or SushiSwap or whatever else, and their fees are incredibly low. Even in MetaMask, the fee is under 1% if you just want to swap directly in there. So I think OpenSea would have to change their fee structure to make it worth people's while to do so. I also then think that would put more pressure on them, because people have been saying for a long time now, like, when is OpenSea going to drop a token? I personally don't think they're going to, but if they then added an exchange function where they're bringing even more revenue, I think that the pressure put on them by the community to do a token drop of their own would be much, much higher.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was confirmed that they were planning to do this eventually, but I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like delayed, like until the end of time, right? Because it does add a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And I mean, they downsized their team recently, so it doesn't really feel like this would be the right time to do it.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to swap in other ways. I mean, it makes sense. Like if that was your one-stop shop for everything, you know, crypto and NFT, I'm sure they would love to have that reputation. Like you could swap your ETH to ApeCoin right on the Bored Ape Yacht Club page, or, you know, when meme coin comes out, do it that way. But, you know, we'll have to see. I think that'd be a big, you know, adventure on their part.
Yeah, definitely. So just to wrap up our entire conversation, moving forward, do you think, like, are you more in the favor of people not paying royalties, or are you more in favor of people like paying royalties to collections and the artists?
Artists 100%. I think, you know, that is one of the great things about NFTs as a form of digital art, is that it can, you know, so many artists create a piece of work. They don't really make that much money off of it at first, or if they do, you know, it's after like they've died. But these days, you know, artists can create art. They can then get paid, you know, because if you buy a piece of art, you hold it for, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you sell it for a huge profit. Like, did you really do any? And it goes up in value because of all the great work the artist has done.
Yeah,
I think the artist deserves to be compensated for that. So I do, you know, I'm all for creator royalties when it comes to one-of-one art or small additions. But when it comes to PFP projects, you know, I think royalties, you know, exorbitant numbers, like high percentages, like that to me is always a red flag. And also, what are you going to, are you doing anything with those royalties besides padding the creator's bank account, which it was already padded enough when you did the initial sale? And, how are those, how are those royalties going to be put back into the business to drive value to your holders?
Yeah. And that's part of the, like, that's something I think about as well. When you have art, right? One of one or whatever, it's small collection. Often the artist is relatively small as well. You kind of feel bad if you don't pay royalty, right? Because you're, like, I wouldn't say you're stealing from them, but like you kind of like you're happy paying the royalty because you like the artist, right? It is a one person or a small team of people, and you have this connection. But with an entire project, you often, or at least I often feel that the project has so much money and is so large that if I don't pay the royalty fee, I don't really feel like guilty or anything.
Yeah, I feel you there. Yeah, you see some of these that mint out for obscene amounts of money. Yeah. It's like, why should I be paying even more money on secondary to to be involved in this? So I can't fault you there. But that's one thing I've appreciated about, like, Yuga, is that they've always done like the 2.5% royalty thing.
That's so low. It's so crazy. 2.5%.
Yeah, like they minted out for 0.08 and they've kept their royalties low, except for other deeds. Other deeds are 5% because they split that with Animoca, I believe. But for the most part, these businesses that keep their royalties on the lower side, I think that just shows that they're not trying to be fully dependent on secondary royalties to operate as a business.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
All right, I think that about wraps it up for the royalty conversation.
Yeah, so I hope you all liked the video about us speaking about royalties, because it's been a pretty interesting topic for a very, very long time. And now with the whole Captainz mint from Memeland, it kind of reignited the whole discussion around it, for me at least, for the small community that we have. I'm not sure if it's been discussed like on Twitter at wide, but we figured it was still interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of the ecosystem, so definitely worth our time for sure. So that's going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back on Friday with a live stream recapping the week in the market. I think it could be really interesting between trial of Jimmy the Monkey news. Does that keep the excitement high? We have more economic data in the U.S. Does that impact crypto, which always we know impacts NFT volume as well? So it's going to be an interesting year, 2023, off to a good start. Yeah. Hope it continues to go that way. So for Dan, for the rest of the team at FLOLiO, I am Jeremy. Once again, please like today's video, subscribe to our channel, head to FLOLiO.com. And lastly, if you know anyone who's getting into NFTs or crypto and they need educational material, send them our way. We love to help, especially, we want new people to be onboarded the right way, understand what they're getting into. So that's going to do it for today. We'll be back on Friday. See you next time, everybody.
Bye-bye.